welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. Today we are joining Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, who is running for Senate in Massachusetts again. Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, welcome to PGurus channel.
Great to be here, Sri. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And you've been keeping yourself very busy, sir. And it just feels like yesterday that you had run for the seat that Elizabeth Warren got, and now you're back again, trying to see if you can win the second Senate seat, which is up for re-election in 2020. So I guess you're going through the motions. Perhaps you can walk us through what has been happening with you.
Sure. Yeah. So let me sort of summarize, what occurred in 2018 and where we're headed in 2020. So first, in 2018, in our view, it was a big victory. It's a big step forward. I'll tell you why, even though Elizabeth Warren won, because, I originally ran as a Republican. Mm-hmm. And we'll come back to talking about the historical aspects of this. The Massachusetts GOP establishment, which, by the way, still hates Trump, hated Trump then, was so afraid of me as an outsider, if you remember, because we had a very powerful slogan, only the real Indian can defeat the fake Indian.
Right.
And it was really talking about Elizabeth Warren's lack of integrity, the hypocrisy, and the fact that she represents sort of the pinnacle of corruption. The GOP establishment, you have to understand, is in cahoots with the Democratic Party. So they didn't want an outsider. So if you remember, they ran a guy who faked a Photoshop picture with Trump. There's 3 hands in the picture, which and we knew they were never going to allow us on the ballots, Ray. So, in the non-presidential year, you not only have to get about 20,000 signatures to get on the ballot, but you also have to get 15% in a state convention. This time there isn't that. But they always screw people over, and the GOP establishment has done this to other candidates, which I talked about. So we decided there's no way, I'm not into losing, right, or plan loss. So we became independents, and we ran a very powerful campaign, bottoms up. We had these fake Indian, real Indian signs all over Massachusetts.
Right.
That's why, and we sent Elizabeth Warren multiple DNA test kits because of the pressure of that. It wasn't Trump, it was us. Because of the incredible pressure, she took that DNA test, and which made her look like an idiot, and she had to throw in, Peruvian and I think Mexican genes even to get out to 1,000, 1 out of 1,024. But more importantly, we got 100,000 votes as an independent, 5 times more than any independent candidate in Massachusetts Senate history. And moreover, both parties, the GOP establishment and the Democratic Party, colluded and didn't give me access to the debate stage. There were 3 debates.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and this has never occurred before. The last guy who was an independent was allowed full access to the debate stage. He was polling below 1%. I was at 10% favorability and nearly 67% visibility, and we had to take about 1/3 of the money we raised and file a federal lawsuit. So my point is, they are seriously afraid of someone like me who's a real worker, a real scientist, someone who produces, against the, sort of the corrupt legal lawyer class. But in spite of that, we had a huge campaign. The Trumpers on the ground had great respect for us because they realized that this guy that the Mass GOP establishment put was in fact, unfortunately they realized it, right, was in fact a scumbag and full of, garbage, right? So that's what occurred in 2018. So this year we decided to run as Republicans. Primarily, there is no state convention, and it's just up to me to collect my signatures and get on the ballot. So up until 3 days ago, there was no reason for even having a Republican primary because I was the only candidate. On the Democrat side, it's Ed Markey against Joe Kennedy. And Kennedy, he's your typical Kennedy name, has never worked in his life for anything. Has a $50 million inheritance, and his only experience is the name Kennedy. So he's challenging Markey, and so you have that going on. And then about 3 days ago, they threw a con man, we call him O-Con Man, which is supported by 2 people, Bill Weld and Charlie Baker. Those 2 guys really run the Massachusetts GOP. Bill Weld was a former governor, who's a blue blood, who, by the way, is the guy who's running against Trump, okay? Former Massachusetts governor.
I see.
And his student is Charlie Baker, who's a current governor, who also hates Trump, okay? When the 2016 election, he said, I'm not going to vote for Trump, okay? So you have 2 of basically the leadership of the Mass GOP, who has put forward another lawyer guy who comes from a law firm who represents white-collar criminals, okay? It's purely to stop someone like, for me, put another hurdle. The good news is on the ground, we've built up from the last campaign such a bottoms-up campaign. That's what we're exercising right now. So right now we need to get 20,000 signatures to get on the ballot, and that's why I was late today. That's what I was doing. And by the way, these guys do a fake campaigning, fake democracy. The reason they set up those signature limits was to show you actually had strength, right? You know what they do, Sri? These complete cheaters and liars. In fact, I'm running against 3 lawyers. Markey's a lawyer, Kennedy's a lawyer, and this guy's a lawyer, okay? These 3 you know what they do? They get money and they go buy vote. They buy signatures. They pay a company. So they actually practice fake democracy. We actually have people, working people coming out, mothers, families out in the cold, actually collecting signatures. That's how
so
we
you
did
go
last
from
time.
door to door. Your volunteers go door to door.
We go to the store, as people are going to Stop and Shop or Market Basket. We stand outside in the cold, okay?
Wow.
And we collect signature after signature. They pay professional signature getters, okay? So this is the total BS that happens. So what you really come to realize is, in other states, the Republican Party may be a little bit by the Democrats, but Massachusetts is the epicenter of the swamp, meaning it's where there's no distinction between the GOP establishment or the Democratic Party. They are one unit. And, this goes back, historically, from my analysis, I'm a student of history. If you study U.S. history, 1776 was the American Revolution, right?
Right.
So up until that, who ruled America? The monarchy, the aristocracy, the blue bloods, right?
Right.
The people who came from, the lineage, right?
Right.
Now, when they lost the election, when they lost the revolution, it's not like, Sri, those people got up on a boat and went back to England, right?
Yes. They all had lands here, property here, I guess. Go ahead.
Yeah, they didn't leave. And we have to also understand that the East India Company was really the big force, which was the gainer of the crown, right, in oppressing the colonists here. The same East India Company, which in 1757, in the Battle of Plassey, took over India, right?
Right.
About
So the beginning of taking over of India, right? Yeah.
The beginning of, so the British are now fighting 2 fronts. They just start taking over India. They have another set of competitors there in India, French, Dutch, and then here they have the colonists rising. So in many ways, they gave up. They couldn't fight a 2-battle war, right? So it was too much of their resource spending. So they lose here. And the important thing to understand is that in the United States, these blue bloods didn't get up and leave for London. They embedded themselves back here. And if you look at the data, they really embedded themselves in Massachusetts, right? People who went west, where you could argue a little more interesting, the non-traditional, conventional people, but the people who remained here were those blue bloods. And they always hated the fact that these rabble-rousers won the revolution, right? And so they had that lineage of thinking they're better than everyone. So if you look at a guy like Bill Weld, if you look at a guy like Baker, right, they come from that lineage. They are monarchists, and in many ways, like Alexander T. Tocqueville said, that the aristocracy and the monarchy, when the revolution took place here, they did give the masses, right, the Constitution, some Bill of Rights, etc. That was so they would fight against the British, right?
Right.
But they also took 2 steps backward. That monarchy and that aristocratic class then became the lawyer class or the political class. Primarily, many of them went into law, okay, or banking. And that is what you have. So the Massachusetts GOP, the blue bloods of New England, you can see a direct lineage probably back to the East India Company and the British Crown.
Dr. Shiva, you are really going at the root of this whole big mega tree. Look at how many presidents came from Harvard Law School or Yale Law School.
Yep. So this is, if you look at the talk I gave yesterday, I did a whole talk, everyone makes lawyers jokes, but I did a deep analysis of exposing the lawyer class. You see, if you really look at it, there's a very nice piece of work done by a guy called, I think, Andrew Bonica from Stanford, another one from Carnes, and it's beyond just lawyer jokes. It really shows that the political class in the United States is the lawyers and the bankers.
Yes.
Trump
Yes.
talked about the swamp. Now, me as a biological engineer, if I take a microscope and I start looking at the swamp and I go a little bit deeper, you find journalists, fake news media, right? Bankers, lawyers. And if you take it even slower, you know what the connective tissue, the molecular connective tissue that the swamp scum is made of? The lawyer class. Lawyers. Okay? And so the lawyers, I'm running against 3 lawyers. They don't produce anything. In fact, what's fascinating is there's some very interesting philosophical work done on this. What do lawyers do? They live in the world of the abstract, right? Of manipulation of thoughts and words, right? It's abstract concepts. When they go into court, most litigators, 90% of litigators, I don't know if you know, wanted to be actors because this court is really a theater, right? You can take a guy who actually killed someone, murdered someone, and in that court you create a whole new fiction, right? Of his life, and you can make him look like a victim, whatever, right? So lawyers are basically people who are the ultimate creators of Maya, illusion, right? They create BS. Now, a doctor has to deal with physical reality, right? Patient's heartbeat. An engineer has to deal with physical reality, bridges, structures, software that doesn't work or not, right? A plumber has to deal with physical reality. Electricians. Everyone else in the world primarily deals with the physical reality, the nuts and bolts. Lawyers do not deal with physical reality. In fact, Socrates hated the written word because he says that's where you manipulate people, right? So that's why they can speak with both sides of their mouth. They do it fluently. They think manipulation's okay. You know, getting criminals off. This is part of their shtick. And they've created a world, most importantly, to make us all think we should bow down to them. So the lawyer says, well, you know, I have to charge you a retainer. And you say, well, what am I going to get from that? Well, I don't know, right? You just have to pay me hourly. No other profession works like that. Every other profession, you have deliverables, right? You may put down a deposit, but if you don't deliver, you could take that person to court. Moreover, the lawyer class is self-regulating. The American Bar Association has fought against any type of independent auditing. So you have the monarchy, aristocracy moved from robes into another set of robes, right? To the lawyer class. So it's fascinating that I, as a working class kid from New Jersey, right, who mowed lawns, you know, has worked all his life, I've had a job since I was 14, separate from my other journey growing up in India, you know, as, you know, in Bombay and in a village, you know, that whole existence, which I've talked about. But I grew up as a worker, you know, I'm a worker bee, you know, 4 degrees from MIT. You know, what do MIT engineers do?
On that question,
Yeah.
how many people do you know who have 4 degrees from MIT? I'm just curious.
Well, very few people, but, you know, my degrees are in engineering, right?
Yes, that's hard. That is hard.
Right. I know how to build circuits. I can open up a computer. I can understand it. I can solder. I have a degree in mechanical engineering. I do design, my whole website, everything. I mean, I do all the design, all the artwork, and I'm a biological engineer. So if you look at the founders of this country, they were workers. You know, Washington was a surveyor. He was a farmer. Go look at all of Franklin's works, right?
Yes, yes.
And if there were lawyers involved, they at least had some sense to actually fight for rights. It's not so true today. The lawyers we have today, by the way, what's also interesting to find out, Bonica points out, is that the best laws that were written in the U.S. books were done by non-lawyers, okay? These guys make up laws that no one can understand. They learn how to shove writers in. They're basically the swamp. They're the scum. They're the molecular connective tissue of the swamp, the legal class. And they have a direct relationship back in Massachusetts is a heart of that, Harvard Law School. Anyone who goes to Harvard Law School, they think their inheritance is to run in politics. By the way, interesting statistics. In America, the average person, only 5% of them want to go into politics. If you talk to a lawyer, 58% of them want to go into politics. Another interesting statistic. If you were to do a graph, on the x-axis, you did percent of lawyers in national politics, okay? 0 to whatever, 100%. And then the other axis went, you know, the different types of vocations. Let's say you had lawyers, elite lawyers, you know, PhDs, MBAs, You know what that curve is? It goes like this.
Yes, yes.
The more percentage of lawyers that are in, I'm sorry, this is a different one. The more percentage of lawyers that are in politics, the higher the income inequality. This is a different graph. On the y-axis, you have income inequality, which is what percentage of that country has people in the 1%, okay? So it turns out America has the highest number of people in the top 1% and nearly highest percentage of lawyers. You know who's number 2? Argentina.
Oh.
Another interesting statistic, percentage of lawyers in national politics and prison incarceration. America is number 1, Argentina being number 2, okay? So there's a direct correlation between lawyers in politics and the oppression that they cause you and me, everyday working people.
Can you take a guess on what percentage of the GDP of United States comes from its lawyers?
I don't know. Actually, there is a number. I shared this yesterday. I can find it for you. I think it's the size of the entire GDP of Tennessee.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, I have a number on it. If you want, I can look it up for you.
No problem.
Yeah.
I mean,
but it's significant. But the interesting thing is, in the last few election cycles, 80,000 lawyers contributed nearly $600 million to politicians across 100 law firms. Now, you know why lawyers run for look, if you're a plumber, you have to leave your job as a plumber. You lose income to go run for politics. If I'm running my company Cytosolve and System Self, I'm losing revenue when I do this as a public servant.
Yes.
But if a lawyer who's doing lawyering, he runs, it's like he's going to a conference. He's networking. He's got all of his friends, right? If you're a lawyer and you're part of, you have your law schools, 52 to 69%, you make a phone call, probability of your law school alumni will donate to you. That's why in the first 90 days, a lawyer is able to raise $150,000 on average, 7 times more than you and I running, because he's already got that swamp network, okay? The swamp network.
Yes, so, and there are also other things, such as in some state laws, even the judiciary has to be elected, and therefore the judge himself goes back to the lawyers and say, if you want, verdicts, for you want to elect me, so you pay for my campaign. So there's a huge swamp there too.
Oh yeah, it's a complete racket, and I think we make lawyer jokes, but and by the way, this entire lawyer class goes back to the aristocratic model, that they are somehow outside the purview of us everyday citizens. Think about when you have to go pay a lawyer. Everyone feels so scared, right, to negotiate the fee. Something's happening to you. You don't do that in any other thing, and they all are one. They call themselves brothers and sisters. Okay, so this is fascinating. So what's interesting is I'm running against 3 lawyers. The actual guy who actually creates the future, created email, creates Cytosolve, creates stuff, actually creates jobs, is running against a set of people who've never created anything except problems, right? They thrive on problem creation.
That should be your tagline. I create jobs, they create problems. There you go.
Exactly. Well, I fix problems, they create them.
Yes.
I create jobs, they destroy jobs. So that's what's interesting. So when you look at the United States, they had a revolution, but the United States may need another revolution, because what's happened in this country is the income inequality has become so vast. Massachusetts, all of these Democrats and these GOP, quote unquote, liberal elites run it. And they talk about inclusivity, diversity, blah, blah, blah. The net worth in Boston of an average black person is $8, according to the Federal Reserve report. Wow. The net worth of a white person in Boston is $250,000. So what is Joe Kennedy and the Kennedys and all these guys talking about, income inequality, that they're going to solve it? They've had all 50, 60 years. Trump has done more for black people in 3 years than all of these guys have done in 50, 60, 70 years. So that's the reality of these guys, and they're all lawyers. They know how to talk people, convince people, right? Through rhetoric, when it's all just BS. Right. Obama, lawyer, right? Elizabeth Warren, lawyer. I remember many years ago, I dated a woman from Harvard Law School, and they had a play that they do, once a year, some Christmas play. And, they're doing the theater play, these law students. And I said, oh, will this be on videotape? She goes, no. They don't videotape anything here. You know why? because most of those people know that they're going to go into politics and they don't want any crap on them. Okay?
I see.
So these 22, 25-year-olds are creating their pipeline, okay, to politics. It's like a caste system, man. They think they are ordained to become politicians. That's why Joe Kennedy thinks it's his Senate seat to inherit. And lawyers think it's their Senate seat. The thought of an MIT, forget even MIT, a worker, right, who actually produces things, they look down on us, man. They think like, we're the plebes running.
Yes. And Dr. Shiva, we wish you all the best. And this is a very interesting battle that is coming up. And then let's hope that somebody, a brainiac like you, finds a seat in the Senate, because we need thinking heads there. It's a serious business. You have to think 24/7. And the fact that you're going to give up your innovation, your industry of Cytosolve and your company to go and serve for 6 years, that itself is a huge sacrifice, because you are at probably one of the most productive phases in life. So I wish you all the best, and we will come back with more such interesting conversations.